Hey, welcome to episode 28 of Reels and Heels. I'm just thinking back, like we've done 28 of these.
How's that even possible?
I mean, I guess if you can be thankful for COVID, for, just something, I mean, podcast. I mean, I'm looking.
I think so too.
I would not have met you guys if it wasn't for COVID, so I guess I should be thankful for that.
That's the only advantage right now.
If we hadn't been messing around trying to figure out our own plan, then we wouldn't have been really part of the team, and then we wouldn't have been sharing the kinds of things we were sharing. So it's kind of, I don't know. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's been fun. Mixing it up, talking about some movies, talking about some TV, talking about some wrestling. That's
being a giant nerd and having friends to be nerds with. This is fantastic.
Exactly. So today's topic is Cruiserweight wrestling. But before we get into that topic, Brett, you're a very good artist. Do you have any some work that that we can check out? Because I'd like to see some of the celebrity stuff that you.
Let me pull up some of the stuff here and see if it'll do it. Because I know how to share to the screen. I did a Dracula one that's
that's the Bela Lugosi, right?
Yeah, I did that one. It's pencil, and I did some red for the name. Yeah, on my page here. Okay, let's see if I can share.
Yeah, I still haven't figured out how to do the sharing thing on here yet.
I'm a little choppy when it comes to it.
Where is the option for it? Like, I don't.
On the bottom.
Oh, there it is. I see it.
Where it says share screen.
Yeah, I believe it's this one here.
It's right there.
Oh yeah, share screen. But
you can share your entire screen, the application window, and the Chrome tab.
Yeah, we'll have to play around with that. And when I get some artwork, I'll share it with our fans here. But so like I said, you're an artist that loves wrestling and everything pop culture, and that's why you wanted to join our show today. So let our listeners know about what got you into all the fun stuff that we love talking about.
Well, what got me into artwork, which we'll probably talk about in another episode, is I met an artist here in Zephyr Hills at my local shop, comic book shop that's no longer here. And I was just hooked on the artwork when I saw them drawing. So the next day I went home and I started out easily. I started with the bat symbol because since I was a kid, I've been a Batman fan. I know I'm jealous of you right now, Willow. I want that shirt.
It's a nice shirt.
I found it at Value Village, of all places.
I think she did this.
I know. We don't have any places like that here.
I think she did that just to torture me.
Probably.
Hey, right now for there's HarleyCon going on. And there's a discussion about Batman happening right now. So
yeah.
I'm just like,
yeah.
So you started with drawing the bat signal.
Yeah, I started with that. Then I did Wonder Woman. Then I went on to I think it was around the time that Infinity War came out, so I tried to do the Captain Marvel symbol. After
Did
that, then I moved
Superman?
on.
Did you do a Superman logo?
Who, Superman?
Yeah, have you done that one?
Yeah, I tried that one. And then I moved on to something a little more simple, or a little simple as a drawing. It was the animated version of Batman and Batgirl.
Yeah.
Then I tried something a little more difficult, which is a Batman on one side and the Joker on the other. And that eventually, 2.5 years later, it's led me to my celebrity stuff that I've done. Which I've done an Adam West Batman, I've done Bela Lugosi, I've done Mr. Miyagi, a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah, I totally dig the style. I mean, I would totally pick up an art book just in that style.
We need.
I'm kind of glad you said that because I'm trying to put out an art book. I'm trying to format the book. It's going to be 40 pages long. So it's 40 pages of different characters, actors. Either they're in their character or they're out of their character. It doesn't matter to me. So I'm trying to put that together to sell. Oh, another one I've done is I've done John Candy as Barf from Spaceballs.
Nice.
I love.
Maybe you should start doing some of the wrestlers, like maybe like some of the old school, like maybe doing a Rey Mysterio mask or something like that.
I haven't given that one a try, but being the wrestling fan that I am, I'm a Hulk Hogan fan. I'm a diehard Hulk Hogan fan. So I did do one of him.
Nice. What era of Hogan did you do?
I started in the 90s, so it was still
like NWO
in the red and yellow before he went into the NWO.
Okay.
I was there before Nitro started.
All right. Yeah. When WCW was trying to figure out what they were going to do. So that leads us into this conversation about cruiserweights, which you don't see a lot, especially in WWE, as much as you did in the 90s.
Yeah.
They were high flyers. They were fast-paced matches. They always, especially in WCW, stole the show. It doesn't matter if Hogan or Sting was in the main event on Nitro or that pay-per-view. People were always talking about matches with Rey Mysterio or Chris Jericho or Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah.
When we talk about cruiserweights, we spend a lot of time talking about WCW, and it's always funny because people always say, well, NWO and stuff, but when I think WCW, I always think of the cruiserweights. Like I think of Chavo Guerrero, and I think of Psychosis, and I think of those guys who were, and Rey Mysterio, that were the high flyers in their non-stop matches, and it was just more fun to watch.
Yeah,
there was less bravado and more movement.
As much as the older, more established guys tried to make the focus on them, because back in the day, that's what it was. Business was. You noticed the high flyers. You noticed the Chris Jerichos, the Rey Mysterios, the Dean Malenkos.
Oh, man. And the thing is, Dean Malenko had Dean Malenko. He had all the goods where he, lacked in like promo skills and stuff. But in the ring, the dude was legit.
Oh yeah, definitely.
When he built him, whoever built him as the man of 1,000 holds, I think that
he really was.
He could move in the ring. It was much different. He brought a much different element to the ring.
Yeah, he was not really a high flyer. He could do some high flying stuff. He was more of a mat technician. But if you put a high flyer in there with him, he could hold his own, and he was very adaptable in the ring.
Yeah.
some of the best, I guess the best story arc was him and Jericho when Jericho was a heel. Jericho
was a heel?
Yeah. Jericho did the whole, like, he came out with printed paper and he said, forward. Malenko, you're the man of 1,000 holds. I'm a man of 1,001 holds. And he had a list on Nitro and he was reading every move he knew how to do. It was just hilarious. Do you remember that episode of Nitro?
Not that one, no.
But I think when they put someone that's a little less mic worthy and a little more technical with someone who's both, I think that they managed to really sell a feud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, really well.
And that was something that a lot of these cruiserweights, because WCW, they always were pushing the big guys, the big names, and the cruiserweights were just kind of there.
Well, they were mid card, kind of like.
And the way that they were treated, like Jericho, he came in as a baby face. In WCW, he was always the guy that would stand and take pictures and smile and shake everybody's hand after their match. And they never really let him talk. And as soon as they gave him the mic, that was it. He changed, especially in that division, the promo skills of the cruiserweights and promo skills in general. Because
they weren't just guys you saw in the mid card; they were guys you saw now on TV having promos of their own. It wasn't just the big guys; it was everybody else. Like, how often did we hear the luchadors talk? Like, we rarely ever did. And I mean, I'm sure there's reasons for that, but we rarely did. And then when we got to talk, hi, I see a child.
I mean, the luchadors, the ones that could speak English very good. So, like, Mysterio and Juventud and, of course, Eddie and Chavo.
Yeah.
But I think part of that was that the
wasn't that part of their gimmick though too?
I think a lot of it was like, if you were masked, you didn't talk very often, like very rarely.
Yeah,
you didn't really hear them very often because I don't think Hoovy talked until they unmasked him.
Well, I think he talked a lot. Like, even though he spoke English, he would do some promos in Spanish. But he would usually have, like, another wrestler with him, like Mysterio or somebody that would speak English.
I mean, I think we were talking kind of about this when I was watching. We were watching a video this morning, and we were talking about the
way that they were treated.
The way that they were treated. Because when cruiserweights came in, a lot of them were from Japan and from Mexico and from other places, and then they were treated so poorly. Like, you had Japanese wrestlers billed as Mexican wrestlers, and you just didn't kind of pay real homage. And then, of course, Eric Bischoff and his infinite need to unmask luchadors. I mean,
which is a slap in the face.
Yeah. I mean, like, we, as wrestling fans, I mean, you want to try really hard to honor all of the different words. I can't think of the word.
The different types of
traditions,
right?
Like the traditions and things. So you want to, like, I never wanted to see Rey Mysterio without his mask. Like, it was part of his.
That's just it, yeah.
It was part of his, but also when he unmasked, you got to see another side of him when he worked with Billy Kidman and all them.
Well, it's the same thing when they unmasked Kane for the first time. Like, for the longest time, he had this mystery to him, and that's what I liked about some of these wrestlers was the mystery behind their characters. I like for Rey Mysterio to be unmasked, it just took away a lot of his mystery, and I don't know. I feel bad that there was a huge thing about unmasking luchadors because yes, it is a religion for them to have their mask.
Yeah, and see, when they're unmasked in Mexico, usually that means retirement.
Right.
Right. So they're leaving their, they lose the mask, they leave the mask in the ring, and they're done. So in the States, we don't really have any, traditions with masks and stuff like that. So Eric Bischoff.
Same thing up in Canada. Like, we have a huge issue when it comes to people wearing masks, and it shouldn't be that way. Like, if it's a religion, leave it alone.
Well, one of the Canadian wrestlers, Sami Zayn, he was El Generico, and he wrestled under a mask for the longest time. But going back to WCW with Mysterio and Bischoff and the whole, basically Mysterio was forced to remove the mask or he would lose his job. So that's where it hurt too.
Really, I wonder how much of that was Rey Mysterio wanted to go with it, or how much of that was Eric Bischoff telling him, you have to do this.
Well, I think Mysterio has said in podcasts and interviews, years later that his job was actually threatened. He refused to. He refused to do that, but the pay was good, so he didn't want to lose his job, so he went along with it.
But if you think about it, how often do we hear things like that where you're kind of stuck in limbo and your job is still your job?
Yeah.
A lot of times they just tell us that we can. That they can fire us whenever they want to, but at that same token, it's not necessarily feasible for us to just be dropped. Think about all these. It's the same with record producers and things like that. When you lose or if you've lost your record contract, you're going to do what they tell you to do because they're the ones that are signing your paycheck.
Yeah.
Right.
Even at the end of it, when it can eventually hurt you. I don't think it hurt. I don't think it hurt Rey Mysterio's career, but it definitely took a.
It may not have hurt it, but yeah, it
didn't hurt it, but it wasn't boosting it up like it did when he was in WWE.
Right.
Yeah, I think some of the greatest matches Mysterio had was in the Cruiserweight division in WCW. And then when he finally did come to WWE, I believe it was already called WWE when he came. When he came over to WWE, he kind of reinvented the way he did things there because he was no longer wrestling Cruiserweight, even though his style was still Cruiserweight. He was wrestling people like The Big Show,
right,
and Brock Lesnar, and Kurt Angle, and John Cena.
And I think that was the difference, because I think that's why when you stopped hearing Cruiserweight, you heard High Flyer. I think you heard a lot more, high flyers or references to smaller guys. And, we can all pretty much assume that that's because Vince has a basic hard-on for big guys.
Oh yeah, that's fact.
And so he'd rather see these super, muscular freaks of nature as opposed to these smaller guys that can move in the ring. And I think that was Chris Jericho's really Chris Jericho's claim to fame was the fact that he was both. Even though he was a smaller guy, he knew holds, he knew how to wrestle, he was trained, he was good on the mic, and he could.
Oh yeah, he was a triple threat when it came to the entertainment industry.
And when Chris Jericho, I was gonna say with Chris Jericho, what caught Vince's eye was his promo work and of course his in-ring skills. He was trained by the Hart family, so. He worked in the dungeon. He was really close to that family. And to have him debut on Raw over The Rock and interrupt The Rock, who at that time was the best mic worker in WWE.
Yeah.
and Jericho could hang, Jericho was it. He was made a star that night.
Yeah.
This guy punched him in the chin.
Yeah.
And this guy
So
punched him right there.
something
What
a
did you
little
watch?
fresh. Me and Nicole, we
Market?
watched NXT 31, which was this past Sunday. And even though these two guys, like I said, the way that cruiserweights are defined today compared to yesteryear,
Look.
Finn Balor and Kyle O'Reilly for the NXT Championship. Hands down, it's the match of the year. I don't think there's going to be a match that's going to top it this year. I mean, NXT could prove me wrong because they do that. But two guys, very small guys, very athletic guys. And if they were wrestling in the 90s, they would totally be in the cruiserweight division. If you have not seen this match, and you can subscribe to the WWE Network or look on YouTube, Finn Balor and Kyle O'Reilly.
I watched it this morning. It was
Great storytelling.
It never stopped. It was back and forth and back and forth. No. Go away. Go find something to do. Children.
Okay, so you're talking about it never let up.
I don't remember.
The match never let up.
So the match never quit. It just kept moving. And so someone was like, oh, Finn Balor's jaw got broken in two places. And I'm like, well, when did that happen? Like, what happened? This is Finn Balor's face. I'm like, it's an Irish jawline. Like, let's not mess with perfection here. Like, he has a very nice jawline. And I saw the knee to the face, and I'm like, oh my God. Because by the end of it, they're both bloody messes in their mouth. And I'm like, Kyle O'Reilly's got broken teeth and Finn Balor's got a broken jaw. And at the end of the match, Kyle O'Reilly's on the ground and Finn Balor walks over to him and helps him up and, shakes his hand. And I think that for me, that was always what the cruiserweight was. Like, it felt like they never really played as dirty as the heavyweights. Like,
Right.
they weren't ever as, it was more of like a boys club where they all were working together. It didn't seem like they were really in competition with each other. Maybe I'm not right, but
they had a lot of mutual respect.
I felt like there's a lot more sportsmanship in the cruiserweight and the smaller guy, between the smaller guys, because they're all kind of vying for that place. You would think that they'd kind of have a more cutthroat.
They weren't like the big guys, where the big guys were just trying to make a name for themselves.
The big guys would kill each other and they didn't care.
The cruiserweights, they knew, working together, that it didn't matter if they were going to be the top guy or not, or top girl, they would know that they made their stamp on the night.
Yeah.
Because these matches, like I said, the matches in the cruiserweight division were some of the best wrestling to watch. Like, if I was to tell you to, like, if you never watched wrestling, even if you don't like wrestling, I tell you to go back and watch certain matches. Watch Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. Watch Dean Malenko and Jericho. Heck, even go back to Brian Pillman and Jushin Thunder Liger. Brian Pillman being an American wrestler, Jushin Thunder Liger from Japan. Ultimo Dragon. I mean, these matches, you'll see something in it. And this is what the cruiserweights did.
Stone Cold.
Yeah.
They weren't your, like Hulk Hogan guys, that went out there. They were like big burly guys.
But this goes back to the discussion we were having before the show started. I look at Brian Pillman. I don't see cruiserweight in his build. I see a heavyweight. I see somebody like Hulk Hogan, Sting. I see him in that kind of a tier.
Yeah. Well, before Brian Pillman was the light heavyweight champion of WCW before the cruiserweight title was
a cruiserweight title.
Yeah. So what they did was they rebranded the light heavyweight title to the cruiserweight title.
I think though that there was definitely a change in the weight classes. Like they were trying to do what boxing was doing to kind of legitimize the profession. But then when they realized it really didn't matter, I think that the lines got really blurred. And when WCW was gone, it just became kind of it was an all for one. Like you see the smaller guys working for the same titles. So even now it's like we don't really see the Intercontinental Championship as a smaller guy championship. Right. Whereas it was 20 years ago. And, so we see all these guys fighting for all the belts and trying to, make a name for themselves as opposed to having like classes like they did, 20 years ago.
I mean, WWF had the cruiserweight title and then like it just disappeared and only, in the last 5 years was brought back.
Well, and even now, like you just told me that 205 Live isn't even a thing now. So
yeah,
at the end of it all, like where do these guys fit? They all just kind of become on the roster and there's no weight class, there's no divisions, there's no top guy in each section. There's just top guys.
Yeah, because not everybody can be like Adam Cole and hang with a big guy or a small guy.
Well, and okay, but
or Finn Balor.
Not everybody can jump off the ropes like those guys either. So at the same time, when you watch Ricochet, you're seeing a guy that can move, and so when you put him with a big guy, he definitely has some sort of advantage, but there's not the size advantage that we see. So we always consider them the underdogs. That's why I think when they build Rey Mysterio against the Big Show. And every time Rey Mysterio could win over the Big Show, it was kind of like it was kind of a big deal because Rey's small. Like he's a small stature, small guy. And I'm not saying that they're not built because if you look at Finn Balor, it's the same thing. Finn Balor's a small guy. He's only like 5'8". He's, and maybe 180 pounds soaking wet. Like it's not. It's they're compact, but Adam Cole
chiseled like.
But Adam Cole is the same way. Yeah. Like they all have a really good physique. Maybe not a bodybuilder physique, but definitely an athletic physique that pushes them to be more capable at certain times in the ring.
Do you find that cruiserweights have a bit more stunt work that they like to do than the other groups, or?
Yeah. Well, the term in wrestling is spots. So whenever you see somebody go from the top rope and do like a moonsault or a springboard, those are spots because they happen in a certain location. And with wrestling, it's a dance. And so it's two guys or two girls that are dancing, telling a story. So this is where the whole term of, wrestling's fake and all that. But if they don't work well together, things happen. And so when you look at cruiserweights who do a lot of these high spots, they're looking out for each other. So yeah, I think the cruiserweights put a little bit more effort into what they're doing. I mean, like I said, you do see some of the big guys try to do, some of these things. There's only a few of the big guys. Like, for instance, as much as I hate him, Brock Lesnar doing a moonsault off the top rope, I was amazed.
Sorry, I hate Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at a guy that's like 200, pushing 300 pounds and doing a moonsault off the top rope. That was impressive.
Now, the Big Show did do one in WCW.
Oh, as a giant, he did do one, didn't he?
Yeah. Because the ropes were sturdier.
But then you see the guys that can move, like the big guys that can move, like the Big Show, when they bill him as like that guy who's just slow and like, like when they bill him like that, it's not really what he's capable of doing. Right. So, when he was a little bit younger, because now he is, he's like quite a bit older now. So, but when he was younger and when he had hair and all of that, like when he was like long haired Paul Wright, he was a lot, his physique was different. Like he seemed smaller, but he moved a lot faster. And so I think that when we build people a certain way, that's what we expect to get. Like you don't expect to see Rikishi move the way Rikishi could move. So when you see big guys, you're like, oh wow, he really could do that. And they don't necessarily look like Chris Jericho and they don't necessarily look like Ricochet, but you're getting the same kind of athleticism and movement in the ring.
Right. So like when you're looking at cruiserweights, and I'm always going to go back to Adam Cole being a guy now.
You're like 1,000 times biased though.
I'm not super biased, but
yes, you are.
All right. So he's billed at 210. I don't think he weighs 210. A thing that people, behind the curtain of professional wrestling, a lot of people, they like build height or build weight. Sometimes it's legit. Sometimes it's just what their character is billed as. But if you're looking at the style of like someone like him and the reason why he's as good as he was trained by Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels, not really a cruiserweight, but moved and wrestled like a cruiserweight.
Well, because Shawn Michaels is not a big guy. Like right. He's not built like Triple H. And so like I always consider like people like that are built like The Rock and like Hulk Hogan and Triple H, like the more bodybuilder heavyweights versus like AJ Styles and Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho, where they were definitely able to be heavyweights, but they didn't move like heavyweights.
Right. They didn't look, they weren't like the bodybuilder, like Batista or somebody like that.
Well, and that's the other thing, like guys like Batista and even Hulk Hogan and sometimes John Cena, like you don't see them move nearly as fast and as some of these cruiserweights. And I think that that's why cruiserweights deserve a spot. I mean, even if we're not talking about them as cruiserweights, we should talk about them as these smaller guys that tend to look more like normal people. Like, like I see people all the time that look like Adam Cole, that have that same build, that athletic, trim.
That's I'm looking in my head. Yeah, that's exactly like if you look at the cruiserweights and people like Chris Jericho. Well, Chris Jericho then, not Chris Jericho now. But AJ Styles, that's like your average male. I mean,
it's the average male physique. Like if you're looking at average athletic, like guys who just work out, like average workout, not like crazy workout or don't work out at all.
Right. Like,
if somewhere in the middle.
If you're going to walk down the street, how many Batistas are you going to see? How many Hulk Hogans are you going to see? Maybe a couple, right?
But I work at the place I tutor at. There's a guy who tutors there, and he looks a lot like what you would consider like Chris Jericho back in the day. Like his build is a lot like that. He has very muscular arms. He has, a defined look. Like, I don't know if he's actually gone to the gym, but clearly he does, because there's definition in his muscle groups. And so you see these guys that are just like average guys that are not really training or being anything as far as like sports, but They just go to the gym and they work out 3 days a week, and that's what they freaking look like. Because really, even Finn Balor is not that toned and defined, but well, he is in his chest and his arms, but not really his legs as much. But if you think about that, like, he is a smaller guy, but he is very much a traditional, like the traditional athletic male that we see. We don't see a lot of, you know, ridiculously looking muscular guys like The Rock. Like, I don't see them walking around Polk City. Yeah. Like, I'm sorry. they're not here. They might be somewhere else, but they're not here.
Well, I mean, okay, we're seeing a lot more of us nerdy people working out and getting toned, and so I mean, like, having like the smaller people being the cruiserweights and doing a little bit more for themselves to keep, you know, to basically one up each other is fantastic when it comes to wrestling, because it adds to the entertainment. And when they're up against the bigger groups, it adds more finesse, because it's like they're trying very hard to instead of just being the muscle people, they are the stunts, they are the entertainment. And so and then we have, you know, and then to have like someone like Chris Jericho come in, who we call them the triple threat, who can act, who can sing, who can dance, basically be a huge entertainer as well as a great wrestler. Like that, he just, I don't know, he just makes the show so much more spectacular whenever he's on stage.
Well, it's funny that you bring up Chris Jericho, because when people talk about the GOAT, the greatest of all time, you know, a lot of people will say like Ric Flair, but there's a lot of people that say Chris Jericho.
Chris Jericho,
like
all the
Chris
way.
Jericho, he's an AEW, you know, he was their first AEW champion. Chris Jericho doesn't need to be a champion anywhere. He doesn't even need to be in professional wrestling anymore, because he's done it all. There's nothing left for him to do.
Well, he's living that icon life. You know, like, I think that there's a lot of people who know Chris Jericho and have seen him throughout his course of his wrestling career, and then have followed him into music, and then have followed him to AEW, where he's wrestling, but really Chris Jericho's job there is to help the younger guys so that they can be competitive in the business too. And I think that is important when we talk about, you know, your lasting impression in any place, like your ability to reach out and give back to whoever you're working with. Because let's just face it, Chris Jericho doesn't need the money. And he doesn't need the popularity continually, because Chris Jericho had gone for years and then came back, and he had just the same pop that he'd had all the years before. So does he need a contract? No. Is he doing what he wants to do? I think that he has been given that right. Like, at this point, like, he is sold enough tickets that he should clearly be able to do whatever he wants to do.
I mean, if I was in the business and there was somebody that I wanted to learn from, I would definitely want to learn from Chris Jericho. I do have to say that yesterday, one of the greatest cruiserweights, Eddie Guerrero, it was his birthday, and, you know, sadly he died November of 2005. But Chris Jericho and Eddie Guerrero put on some fantastic matches. If you've never seen any of their matches in WCW, or heck, even in WWE when they were both there, go back, YouTube, WWE Network, and just do a search for,
I think,
their matches.
Definitely watch. And if you have any adoration for the man at all, like, go and watch the what was that on Dark Side? Was it Dark Side of the Mat, or
when they were talking about the Chris Benoit?
So when they talked about, because the Chris Benoit special they talked a lot about Eddie Guerrero and how
they were like brothers.
They were very close. And when they all came kind of at the same time into the WWE, and they were their own kind of faction, and he made his mark, and he made his mark on a lot of people. So at the end of the day, like when I think about people that were influential, like I love certain guys, like I will always be a huge Edge fan, but to think about all of the really awesome things that I watched Eddie do over the years.
Best frog splash.
Frog splash, hands down. Like he was flying high before flying high was a thing, you know, like, and he and Mysterio kind of like made that a thing.
I mean, and they came from rich wrestling history,
right? And
family.
they did, and I think that a lot of the comedy stuff that that he did with China, and then with his brother, cousin.
It was cousin.
So I think that one hit me pretty hard in 2005. I think, like, you know, I really miss him, and I really miss what he could have given the business after he was done in the ring.
I mean, we talk about Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero. That night, they both won their championships on the same pay-per-view. Eddie Guerrero won the WWE championship, and then Chris Benoit won the World Heavyweight Championship, and us on the same night. That was great.
I agree, Chris. He says Eddie was the GOAT when it comes to cruiserweight. I think that we could talk about all these guys on this list that we made. We could talk about all these guys, but at the end of the day, you know, Eddie is definitely probably the GOAT for cruiserweights, and probably Jericho is the GOAT for everything else, because I'm sorry, like I think the only other person that could match The Rock on the mic was Chris Jericho.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Still to this day.
Okay, so
still to this day.
The best three on the mic. Well, if I was going to make a list of four, the best four on the mic would be The Rock, Jericho, Cena, and Flair.
Yeah. And that's what they got over with everybody. But I think that, but John, like those four guys were never scripted. They never had their shit written for them.
Well, when Ric Flair was doing his promos, that was really him. I mean, he really was.
He is not. their promos weren't written for them. Cena's promos, I think, probably were written for him when he was like the prototype, and like maybe the early like Thugonomics era, maybe. But now nothing is written for him. And Chris Jericho had free reign for a long time, and so did The Rock. And I think that that's why they got over with people so well. And I think that that's why people love them so much, is that when we heard them talk, we wanted to listen.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a cruiserweight that I don't think gets enough love, and that's Billy Kidman.
Mm-hmm.
Billy Kidman.
Really don't like. I don't know why people don't like him.
The dude put on some great matches, and
he did, but there was one gimmick that I thought was just terrible for his career, and that was the Raven's Flop. Yeah.
I think anytime you're like the side, like a side guy for
a faction.
Like when you're not the top guy of the faction, I think you don't get. Because even Kyle O'Reilly's been billed as the NXT secret. Like, not a secret. Like, for 15 years he's been in the business. He's won a lot of titles. He's had a lot of accolades, but we're talking about him like he was a secret. Well, the only reason he's a secret is because he's in a faction with these other guys who are equally good.
Right. Chris said that he would agree with our promo list, but he said don't forget about Dusty and Piper.
I think that it's unfair to leave them off that list too.
Yeah, you can't leave off Dusty, and you cannot leave off Piper.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and watch some of Dusty's promos and Piper. There
was just a difference. I think there was a difference in the approach. Like Piper was dangerous on the microphone. If you gave him a microphone, you never knew what was gonna happen.
Don't give him a coconut either.
Yeah. Well, did Piper say he was cool before it was cool to be cool or something like that?
Well, and to be honest, he did have one of the best lines in cinema that has transcended all of pop culture.
Yes.
And not to toot Winnipeg's horn about having the best wrestlers, but I mean, Chris Jericho, Roddy Piper, come on.
I just say that we've
adopted the charismatic people.
We adopted them in Florida, let me tell you. Like, Roddy lived here for a while, and Jericho lives here now.
Yeah. I do have to say that Winnipeg also has another great wrestler that is over in AEW and possibly maybe the second best wrestler in the business today, and that's his name just slipped my mind. Kenny Omega.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about Kenny Omega, and I don't really care. But and that's my whole thing. I'm terrible about that because I don't follow AEW. I mean, I like Cody Rhodes. Don't get me wrong, but I don't follow AEW. Well, I just don't. Like, I have too many other things to do.
There was a few stars in AEW that I was following before AEW was even thought of. That's because I do follow Ring of Honor, New Japan, but
and I don't.
Going back to the Cruiserweights, Chris did say that Eddie was the GOAT when it came to Cruiserweight wrestling.
Yeah.
We have to look at some of these other luchadors, like Psychosis and La Parka. La Parka, known as the chairman of WCW, he would come out with the chair, do the air guitar. And the thing is, you knew he was going to use the chair at some point in those matches. And Willow, La Parka, he came, he had a full suit, and it was like a skeleton mask.
Okay.
And like they would be different colors. So sometimes it'd be like, the black suit with white skeleton to look like bones.
Yeah.
Or he would paint it up to like red or yellow or, whatever.
And La Parka always took a more comedic turn to things. Like he was always a little bit more funny. Like he really wanted to bring the joy into the ring. But like I always thought it was funny when we were watching because I'm like, this is kind of a big dude. Like he was the bigger end of Cruiserweight.
Yeah.
Like, when you think luchador, you think Rey Mysterio and you think Psychosis and you think Juventud Guerrera, but you don't think La Parka because La Parka was a big guy.
Right.
Like he was a little bit taller and he was a lot more. He wasn't heavy.
He was a
little
little pudgy. Like maybe it was just the way the suit was wearing. He was wearing, the tights and stuff. But yeah, he was definitely on. He was
a bigger cruiserweight.
And,
on the list that I'm looking on, La Parka is number 8 out of 10 on the list. So
like a top 10 list.
Yeah, the top 10 list. Sorry. Yeah. Yes.
You got to be careful here now because there's 2 La Parkas. There was a WCW La Parka, and then there was a guy named La Parka 2 who just recently died.
Was that the one that that replaced him in Mexico?
I don't know. He died in January of this year. I'm trying to look it up.
Buddy, what's the matter?
La Parka 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
He died from the complications of a suicide dive in the ring.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he was the La Parka who worked for the wrestling promotion AAA in Mexico. Yeah. And just the hop on this thing here. I know a lot of people, talk about what we have here in the States, WWE, AEW, Impact, and NWA. Hold on.
But of course, we can't forget of AAA or New Japan Pro Wrestling, any of those others.
So I mean, because I didn't give my phone to the oldest, but I gave it to the youngest. But the oldest always takes it away from the youngest. So sooner or later, it was going to end up in somebody else's hands.
But yeah, I would totally recommend people to check out New Japan. Check out AAA and what is it? SEMA, I believe that's how you pronounce it. A lot of the matches there in Mexico are probably some of the best matches you'll ever see. And a lot of the stuff can be found on YouTube. I always tell people this, just for everything, Google and YouTube is a great tool, for research, for whatever you want to research. In this case, you want to research wrestling. So
speaking of Chris Jericho.
Okay.
So you know how it was like Chris Jericho a heel, ha ha ha. But yeah. Okay. So I don't remember a time. Well, okay. Like way when he first came into WWE, I think he was a baby face. He was a face then. But since then, he has been a heel. And he's a damn good heel. So on Sunday, when Kyle O'Reilly and Finn Balor sustained those injuries, which was a super busy match. It was a very like it kept moving. So Finn Balor's jaw is broken in 2 places. Kyle O'Reilly had some, I think he had a bruised rib and he had some broken teeth. So Chris Jericho has gone on all of these other news sites and torn them up. Just taking shots at them left and right for sustaining all of these injuries in the match. And I'm like, I kind of find it hilarious because Chris Jericho has had a lot of his own injuries that may have not been busted open, broken teeth and things like that, but he has torn all kinds of muscles and, been out for months on end for other things too. So
I wonder if this is like him ribbing them, like, being the heel that he is. Because Jericho's very good at staying in character, even on his podcast.
Yep.
And he even does a cruise, which I believe he just sold out his wrestling cruise for next year. He's done like 4 of them, and he gets wrestlers from different promotions to come on. It's basically a wrestling Comic-Con on a cruise.
Amazing.
It's called Jericho's Rock and Cruise or Wrestling or Wrestle Rock Cruise or whatever. So he
Rock and Wrestling.
Yeah, something like that. He gets like bands to come on and yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'm not, anytime that they take shots at another company, I think there's usually a rivalry going on. But this is very normal for Chris Jericho. Like he's a shit talker. Yeah. He's always been a shit talker,
but he's so good at it.
I know, and that's what makes him such a good heel. So at the same time, I'm like, well, I wonder what's going on, in the midst of all that, because apparently they're all going to be out along with Dakota Kai for a little while.
Yeah.
So, I mean, NXT's kind of taken a little bit of a hit with losing that talent.
Yeah, they're down, I think, like 6 or 7 people.
Because Ridge Holland is having surgery. Finn Balor, Kyle O'Reilly, and Dakota Kai were all hurt.
Wow.
During the pay-per-view on Sunday. So, like, I think sometimes it's all about. I know it broke. Do you remember? Oh my God! You stay here. I'll go. Whatever the hell.
Okay.
If we need to cut this short, don't worry about it.
It's all right.
It's disastrous when the children are involved.
Oh.
Now we were talking about wrestlers that kind of paved the way for cruiserweights.
Yeah.
And I found one that we didn't mention yet, and I'm gonna see if I can share it on the screen.
Oh, you figured out here. Yeah. Let's see here. Let me
Let's
bring
see if
this
I can
up.
figure it out.
I got it up.
Oh no, that's us. That's ours. I'm trying to
Well, you
share.
had
Huh?
you had. There we go. You're trying to bring up 6,
Yeah.
the 1, 2, 3 kid,
Yeah.
X-Pac. You want to call him?
Yeah, I don't know how to get that up there. I thought I had it up there. Now I'm seeing us.
Yeah. Go ahead and put that
That?
right there.
Okay.
Yeah. And let me do this. Yeah, he's definitely someone that in the cruiserweight division that definitely left his mark. I mean, he was never a big guy.
No.
He's but he had all he had a lot of share of problems too. I think that's what kind of held him back a little bit from becoming
True.
bigger. But yeah, he of course he came to the WWF as the 1, 2, 3 kid, and then he joined, of course, DX.
Yeah.
But he went over to WCW and became 6 and joined the NWO and came back to WWE, and yeah.
I ran into that one while I was trying to find a good one of one to kind of contradict Chris a little bit. I wanted to say that my favorite, my greatest of all time cruiserweight is Prince Iakea.
That's all right. Let me add this up here. Yeah, Ikea. He was really good in the ring. It's just that first gimmick that he had just didn't take off.
Yeah.
A lot of the gimmicks in WCW, they did put some crazy gimmicks in WCW. And a lot of them,
gimmick was a Hawaiian gimmick.
Yeah.
The one I don't think took off was when he did a kind of a takeoff on Prince.
Yeah, he came back as the artist.
That was a terrible gimmick to me.
Yeah, the video I watched earlier today was talking about that, and they said, the person that has that gimmick down to the T is Velveteen Dream.
I've not watched him, so I don't know about whether he's got one. I've pretty much stayed WCW, AEW, so some of these new guys I don't really know.
Yeah. So I'm looking at a list here. We can go back and talk about Jushin Thunder Liger, who was very popular in Japan. Since you have that up, you want to see if you can find some pictures of him?
Sure. You were talking also about Psychosis, and he's one of them also that suffered from the losing of the mask. Psychosis and Juventud.
Yeah. And I remember when Hoovy, lost the mask, they did the whole Hoovy juice, and they would all call him Hoovy. Just like when Ray lost the mask, they would always call him Ray.
Yeah. Here's a picture of him from the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, the Hall of Fame that never happened. He was in WWE, I think, a couple times, but Jushin Thunder Liger definitely is deserving to be in the Hall of Fame. Probably one of the most influential Japanese wrestlers, for sure.
Yeah, right there. Jushin Thunder Liger is in there.
Yeah, as you can see, he had the full jumpsuit and a mask, and he always,
That's a great outfit, though. Like his costume was amazing.
Yeah, I think he's had a couple different ones. Does it show any different ones if you scroll down?
Is one of them in the ring? I think that's the same one. Pretty much they all look the same.
Yeah, but as you can see, it looks like he had a black one right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he did wear a black one. A black and gold.
Yeah, there's a black one right there.
And it's a wonder why I was a huge fan of Power Rangers as a kid.
Yeah, well, the Japanese, I mean, yeah, they a lot of the wrestlers did have a lot of Japanese wrestlers with masks and stuff. Not as much as Mexico, but they did have quite.
Uh-oh.
Here's a picture of Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yeah.
Probably now the only WWE wrestler that I'll know in today's world. Not shared. Okay, there we go. So that's now.
Yeah, you got a picture of Psychosis.
Yeah, let me look him up too.
While you're doing that, I'm going to play an ad for some good friends of ours.
Alrighty.
I'm David Thompson.
I'm Thomas Carter Rochester, and we're the hosts of Lights, Thunder, Action.
Join us weekly as we discuss the latest news in comic book movies and the film industry at large.
As well as the Trilogy of Trilogies, where we review trilogies you vote for us to talk about in the Tournament of Trilogies.
We go live on our Lights Thunder Action Show Facebook page and the HWWS Web TV YouTube channel every weekend.
Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts to stay up to date with the Lights Thunder Action Show.
I love that show.
Such great people.
They are great.
Now, would you guys consider the Hurricane as
yes,
Cruiserweight?
Sean. Yes, he started in WCW actually.
Yeah, he was Sugar Shane Helms.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
I was a huge fan of him when he was on WWE.
Stand back! There's a hurricane coming through, and he'd be like,
I didn't care if he won or not. Every time he showed up, he was just entertaining. I loved him. His costume was fantastic, and it was just always a good time when he showed up.
Yeah, the Hurricane. He was definitely there for the entertainment purposes. But the dude, he actually is a legit, he can actually put on some great matches. I want to say that he's actually one of the trainers at NXT in Orlando.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So I found
One day
Psychosis.
I will meet that guy.
All right. So yeah, this is Psychosis and another colorful luchador.
Okay.
And did you follow WCW a lot, Brian?
Yeah, dude, I was the guy that was switching back and forth between Raw and Nitro.
Then you remember this gimmick here, the LWO.
Yes, for Willow, this was the Mexican NWO, basically.
Okay.
the Latino World Order. It was like, what was it? Eddie Guerrero and Chavo and Psychosis and La Parca and pretty much every luchador in WCW or Mexican wrestler was part of this.
Right. Kind of making fun of them.
Yeah, and then isn't that him without the mask there next?
Yeah, it is.
Right?
This
that Psychosis?
That's the Psychosis. Let me see what happens if I bring this up. There we go.
I'm kind of watching this on my phone, and it's delayed. So right now, I'm still seeing the LWO version. There we go.
Oh no, I have the unmasked version up there with all the other pictures. But yeah, this is definitely, he was a good luchador, good cruiserweight in WCW.
He was a good high flyer. I think he didn't get enough.
Well, we know why a lot of the international stars didn't get the love.
Well, I mean, they're getting it now. Had they come out, you know.
Yeah, Juventud.
Had they come out now, I think that they would get a much different reception.
Yeah, especially with the masked people that they have in WWE right now, or, you know, at the last 10 years, 5 years, people like Sin Cara.
People really did enjoy Sin Cara, which I think isn't wrong. It's just that he never got the same kind of, maybe he's not the best example.
Yeah. If I knew this wouldn't get shut down, I would love to bring up a couple of matches for people, you know, short clips, but I believe the video would be shut down if we did that.
They would probably take it off.
Probably, yeah.
But I think overall, you know, when we talk about, but I also, like, we didn't talk about some of the other smaller guys, like Evan Bourne and
Evan Bourne.
I know you guys were just talking about Shane Helms and his Hurricane, but
Willow just loves the Hurricane.
He was always so much fun.
I had a huge crush on him.
It's adorable. Like he's just adorable. He's like the boy next door.
And the thing is, he's from North Carolina, so he grew up with the Hardys. So they were like best friends.
But I think there's that whole like normal everyday people. Like you don't assume that people like the Undertaker are normal human beings until you see them, and then you're like, oh well, yeah, he lives life just like us. Only he's tattooed, rides his motorcycle, and looks like the dead. You know, like
and I know we're talking cruiserweights, but speaking of the Undertaker, if you have not yet seen it, watch the Last Ride documentary. Possibly one of the best documentaries
on WWE Network.
Yeah, it's a 5-part series.
Okay, I'll definitely have to look it up.
So I guess the shots that Jericho's taking, I read the article while I was off dealing with children.
Yeah.
So apparently someone on Twitter had retweeted what Finn Balor tweeted about the Broken Jaw in 2 places still the champ. And so he retweeted it and then said, like, at I am Jericho, at AEW, at blah, blah, blah. Are you taking notes? And then Jericho replied, to beat the fuck out of each other, to be out of work for months? Sure. And that was #smart wrestling. So that was his response, you know, to like saying that, you know, because Finn Balor with the jaw injury like that is going to be out for at least 2 months. And then Alex O'Reilly, they were still they were still looking at whether he had other injuries, internal injuries at that time, like at post when they were posting that article. So they hadn't come out and said if he'd had anything other than broken teeth. So like what was happening? Like, because I didn't think it was a match. It didn't seem like a match like that. Like when you're like, damn, I think the guy should be dead right now. You know, like it wasn't a match like that. I didn't think it was it moved really fast, but it just must have been enough high octane that they got hit hard enough and had their heads in certain ways that caused it. Because I'm telling you, I really think that knee to the face is what broke Finn Balor's jaw. And if that's the case, when they both had bloody mouths, that's probably when those things happened. And I think that if Finn Balor broke Kyle O'Reilly's tooth, then that's probably when it happened, is when he was spitting blood all over the place. You don't see people bleed nearly as much. Like, because Stone Cold's not in the ring.
Yeah. And
I never saw a person bleed more than Stone Cold. Ever.
So
never, ever.
There's a term in wrestling when a wrestler bleeds, it's called bleeding, which they don't do anymore as much.
They used to.
It's the razor blades that you would use to cut boxes. They would have one like something about that big, and when someone is distracting the crowd, the other wrestler would blade themselves to think that like when they hit their head on the metal turnbuckle or
a chair,
that's why they would open.
And it was always on their forehead because that's the part of your body that bleeds the most.
Because there's no veins there.
It's just blood vessels. And they're close to the surface. It's like,
yeah.
But it's just, like I said, I never saw anybody bleed more than Stone Cold Steve Austin. But I don't know.
Let me ask you this.
Our cruiserweights definitely deserve a shout out.
Let me ask you this, Brett.
That.
What is your favorite move that happens in a cruiserweight match?
See, I'm more of a technical wrestler, not a high-flying wrestling fan, but anytime they can pull off something that you've never seen before, because you've seen crossbody all the time. You've seen the suicide dive all the time. And you've seen the shooting star press and all that all the time. So anytime they can pull one of them off, or a move that you've never seen, that really amazes me. So it's kind of hard to pick one specific move.
Yeah. There was a match. I can't remember who it was. Jericho against somebody. I will have to look it up on my phone when I can. But the person was jumping off the top rope onto Jericho, and Jericho caught them and reversed it into the Lion Tamer, or the Walls of Jericho.
Yeah.
To do that takes precision without hurting somebody.
Well, and then it was,
if you know what the Lion Tamer / Walls of Jericho is, it's basically like a Boston Crab. You have their legs like this, and you're on their back, and you're pulling back and putting pressure on the lower back.
But you're not putting as much pressure on it as some Boston Crab moves are, where you're sitting directly on it. Where they're bridged.
Yeah. But to pull off a move like that without hurting somebody.
Well, we just watched that one with Rey Mysterio where he went from the
Rey Mysterio
shooting star into a
who was it? It was Rey Mysterio and was it Guerrero? It was Eddie Guerrero.
It was Guerrero.
Yeah.
And Rey Mysterio's in purple.
Yes, it was. That was.
And so it was like Starcade or something, Fall Brawl or something.
Rey Mysterio does the some kind of salt over the top rope onto Guerrero and turns it into a Hurricanrana.
They called it something
moves will always be one of my favorite moves, though. It's like anything anytime that he's in the ring and then he does like the twirl,
the 619. Yeah.
Yeah, through the ring.
Guaranteed someone's leaving the ring.
I think my favorite is Chris Jericho's Lion Salt. But
yeah, and where the Lion Salt, that is the moonsault
off of the middle of the rope. It's not, it's in the middle of the ropes. But also, when my favorite female wrestler that ever did it was that Lita could always go into a hurricanrana so fast, and it was like she could take them down. She could reverse whatever was happening, and she could take them down with the hurricanrana. And so she was my favorite for a long time. So
she can hit a hurricanrana, but like DDP can hit the diamond cutter anywhere.
Yep.
Hey.
We should do a show about our favorite moves.
Favorite moves. Wrestling. How about we do a show about devastating wrestling moves?
Because none of them are devastating anymore. Everybody gets up from the move.
Unless
this is the finisher, but you get up.
They shouldn't be devastating, but
they used to be. How about devastating wrestling moves of yesteryear, because they're not devastating anymore.
We can do. We can do. Yeah,
finishers. We'll do finishers. Finishers. I don't know. Did we even talk about cruiserweights? Like, I feel like we talked about everything else.
No, we did talk about some cruiserweights.
We talked about Chris Jericho, Rey Mysterio, Psychosis.
What is your Nicole? Who is your favorite cruiserweight?
My favorite cruiserweight. There are two. Probably my favorite of all time is Eddie Guerrero, but I also really enjoyed watching like Evan Bourne. I used to love watching him fly off the ropes. And he was a different kind of, because this is going to sound a little weird, but he was like, you didn't see a lot of white guys doing that. Like, you saw the luchadors do more of that. And you saw more of your like certain trained wrestlers doing that, but you didn't see a lot of white guys doing it. And so, you know, as much as I love the other guys that were high flyers, I mean, like,
if you took Evan Bourne and placed him in the mid 90s, he would totally fit right in.
He would have fit right in.
Right into.
And I'm just kind of sad that you don't see him in the professional, you know, on TV anymore. Like,
well, he had he had a devastating ankle injury.
I'm kind of sad that he is back in the indies and not wrestling as much, because he really was like, and we met him. He was a real stand-up nice guy too.
Yeah.
And he just loves talking about the business. And so it was just interesting to hear him talk.
That was this year in January.
Yeah, it was in January.
Brett, did you go to the Lakeland Comic-Con?
No, I didn't go to that one. I've been wanting to go to, but I didn't go to that.
Yeah, well, he was there.
He was there, and we talked to him at his booth. Stop. Oh, my God. I'm going to kill the children. Okay, no, Facebook, I'm really not going to kill my children. I'm just going to...
Careful, don't let
Zuckerberg... I'm just going to leave. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go outside and mow the lawn in the rain, I guess.
Yeah. But what ended his WWE career was he broke his ankle.
Pins. It had to have pins and stuff.
Yes,
right?
It had to have pins.
Jeez.
But I do miss him, and he was just different. So he was one of my favorites back then too. And I feel like I kind of missed out on some of it, because more of it was like Rey Mysterio and some of those guys that I was like, they were just flying high, and like they were just fun to watch.
Yeah, at the time when Evan Bourne was there, that was when Kofi Kingston. This was way before the New Day.
Yeah,
when he was the Jamaican Kofi Kingston.
Okay, so guilty pleasure is Chavo's entrance theme.
Chavo. Oh yes.
I love Chavo Guerrero. Because and the thing is he was supposed to be the straight guy, like when to Eddie's crazy. You know, he was Eddie's straight man. So he was the guy that Eddie played all the pranks on. But if you really, he was a nice looking guy. And so his intro music, every time it hit, I was like, oh my God. Because I was always super excited to see him in the ring.
It was a girl's voice. It'd be like, ooh.
Chavo. And I'm like, oh my God.
And then it would go into like a Mexican. Like,
I remember that. Yeah.
And I was always kind of sad that, you know, they kind of stopped doing their back and forth and he kind of left.
I think Chavo still is with WWE though, backstage.
He's backstage. But like I kind of miss seeing his face because he was fun to watch. Like he wasn't like he was a mid-card guy, but he was fun to watch.
Yeah, he was never going to be a top-tier guy, but
and it didn't matter though because he was fun to watch and he was like the comic relief. He was also like I
feel like they played up on the Latino attitude a little, maybe a little too much. But I mean, like it was, it almost seemed
Eddie,
like it was
the
stereotypical.
whole, lie, cheat, steal.
Well, it was but no, they were doing the lowrider stuff, like a lot of the real like, lowrider stuff, and then they were doing like the Latino heat.
Yeah.
And
it felt like it was like poking fun at the stereotypes of Latinos.
When it was like the spicy Mexican kind of thing, like, he is all about.
Yeah. Hey, remember when Chavo had the horse? Remember when Chavo had the horse? God. The horse head on a stick?
Yeah, the horse head on a stick. Just, they do weird stuff, and those are the things that you remember, because you're just like, it was fun. Nobody ever took anything too seriously, and everybody just had fun.
It could have been worse. It could have been, a guy with a mop.
Right. You mentioned the horse head, and that kind of reminded me of somebody that I don't know if he was considered Cruiserweight or not. Perry Saturn.
Perry Saturn.
Was he considered he wasn't really a Cruiserweight, but he hung out with Eddie and all them. They all came over at the same time. From WCW.
He wasn't a Cruiserweight though. He was a bigger guy. He was
scary.
He was like a mid card, And the thing is, with wrestling, a lot of people got to realize when you say, top guy, low guy, it doesn't mean you're not good. Like you don't have the goods and you're not talented. There's just, you're just at a certain level, and that's just
you're just going to be entry level for the rest of your career.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about it is sometimes you got props from other people. So there's a whole interview with Gene Okerlund with Bret Hart, who talks about El Dandy, who was a cruiserweight. They always called him low card cruiserweight, way back then. They came right around the same time as Juventud and all them, but he had a certain professionalism that Bret Hart kind of really liked. And so he went on and said that he should get a shot and he should have those moments that everybody else had really wished for.
Yeah, he was going to have a match with Bret Hart, and Gene Okerlund's like, you do know he's a cruiserweight. And then Bret Hart jumped on Gene Okerlund like it was off script. This was live on TV, and he said, well, who are you to say
who deserves a shot and what, And I think that's the part of wrestling that I do like. Like, I really like the fact that it's kind of like a soap opera, but I also like the fact that there's this underlying sportsmanship that goes through.
Right.
I like the fact that it's a conversation people can have and say, I admire this person, and I can still help them up in the middle of the ring and say, this was a hell of a match. And I think those are my favorite matches.
Yeah.
But I'm a sap, so.
So when we're going around talking about favorite cruiserweights, I would have to say I would have to agree. Eddie Guerrero. There was just I mean, he was great in his WWE days, but there was just something about the way his matches were in WCW. You know, he was just a Latino from, you know, El Paso, Texas, trying to. I mean, he's a huge wrestling legacy. His family was huge, Mexican wrestling. So I want to say he was probably third, maybe fourth generation wrestler. And he was someone that owned the ring. He had those set of skills. You know, it's kind of like when you look at Liam Neeson and it's like, I got a certain set of skills.
Well, and he definitely did, but he could also play so many different roles. Like he could play that comedic angle, and he could play the tough guy angle, and he could be both a heel and a face. And he moved between them all rather fluidly. Like he didn't have a lot of like, you just expect Chris Jericho to be a heel. You just expect him because he's good at it.
Right. And both Jericho and Guerrero, as they came into WWE, they actually did get jacked. That's why they moved into the heavyweight.
More into the heavyweight. But I think that he could live in both places. Like he was a great face and he was a great heel.
Yeah.
And both sides of it were believable. Like when certain people are heels, you just don't believe it because they're just better faces. So like when John Cena's a heel, or you know, the Thugonomics John Cena doesn't seem like the John Cena I know, like because he's a face and he is good at being a face. I will never see Stone Cold Steve Austin as a face. Like I know he has been a face, but I don't.
No, but I've always known him as the heel, and he does the heel very,
really well. So at the end of the day, like the person that could move between both very believably.
Well, when you're talking about that, you bring up the heel face thing, and you know, for so long somebody was this, and then they came back and they were this. Not a cruiserweight, but just recently came back was Roman Reigns. For years, people were like, "We want him to be a heel." They were booing him. And now he comes back and he's aligned with Paul Heyman, and people are actually like they like this.
But I think a lot of it is because people finally get to hate him, and it's okay to hate him. And people aren't going to get shit for hating Roman Reigns for being a heel because they can hate him, and they can hate him because he's a heel, and because he's a Paul Heyman guy. Part of the reason they hate him now is because he's a Paul Heyman guy, and I think that's because Paul Heyman is a heel, not necessarily because he is.
Yeah.
But I think at some point too, like there's a breaking point at when you've heard the booing and you just kind of like, if I can't beat him, I might as well join him. Now I'm always going to love Roman Reigns. I don't care if he's the heel or a face, but I like him better when he's a heel because I truly believe that when he's standing in the ring, his mic skills are meant to be a heel. Unless he's singing I'm a Little Teapot with his daughter. And then it's, you know, like.
Have you seen that commercial, Willow?
I don't think I have.
Horrible.
Okay, so
I don't think they are.
When we get done, go on YouTube and type in Roman Reigns teapot.
Okay.
So he's standing there with his daughter and he's singing I'm a Little Teapot. It's adorable.
Yeah.
It's just too much.
But anyways, he's got a cool shirt now too. It's wreck everything and leave.
Which I think I'm buying that shirt because that's kind of my life. I'm gonna buy it for the children too, because they wreck everything and leave too. But I think that we just wanted him to be a heel for so long. Like I don't, and kind of the same thing like Bret Hart. I don't really see him as a face. Like he is a much better heel.
Yeah, once he turned heel,
I think he got the recognition he so rightfully deserved. I think he was a better heel.
And the reason why I actually did bring up Roman Reigns on a Cruiserweight episode was Roman Reigns is a big guy, but there are things he does that are very cruiserweight-esque, especially when he does the running drop kick.
Yeah. Because he does leave the ground. And it's pretty seamless.
Yeah.
Like I said, I love Roman Reigns.
Yeah. So, Brett, you figured out how to bring up your artwork, right?
I've got some here, yeah.
Let's bring this
up. I didn't know if you wanted to do it now, though, because we were still talking wrestling.
That's fine.
Look at the Hulk.
Oh, look at that. Hulkamania.
Oh, look at the
that is amazing.
What's his name? What's his name?
Who, this guy? What?
Hulk Hogan?
Not. I know who that is.
Which
shit.
Where?
There was a Clint Eastwood one.
Oh, yeah.
Get off my
That's
lawn.
amazing.
That's exactly what I think when I see this.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, well, that's what he said in that movie a few years ago. Gran Torino. Yeah, he came out there with the shotgun. You know?
That's exactly what I think when I see this. Is I think that movie.
That is very cool. Are you like? How do you research when you're drawing? Do you just look at different photos and?
Well, for Hulk Hogan, I pretty much knew what he looked like. So yeah.
Wow.
That one was kind of easy for me because all the years of watching WCW and Hulk Hogan. For this one, Barf, I had to figure out. I had to find something.
That's awesome. I like the one next to Barf.
To the left or the right?
Mr. T.
Mr. T?
Mr. T.
Yeah.
It is a fool.
Yeah. I like that one. But I did Adam West, Batman, because that's my favorite Batman is Adam West.
Yeah. We'll definitely have to bring this back up next week when we have you on for our indie artist.
Call from.
Yeah.
01015
Stupid recordings.
46320
So I hate these recordings when.
That's all right. I'm gonna hit mute real quick here on
Yeah,
you.
I'm gonna do that. Right there.
Oops. There we go. So yeah, Willow, I'm definitely going to do some research to look up, especially a lot of these cruiserweight stuff, and you'll understand why I decided to do an episode on cruiserweights. What I'll do is I will give you certain matches to watch, and I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find them on YouTube.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I don't know if Nicole's going to be back. Kids. But yeah, cruiserweight wrestling is definitely something I would like to see like come back and be, you know, under the spotlight like it used to be in the WCW days.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, right now WWE, NXT, there are some cruiserweights still. And we're in the last few years, like, you know, Sin Cara, who came from Mexico, and then Lance Dorado, I believe is how you say his name, is another masked wrestler. Trying to think. There was another one. They were called the Lucha Dragons. It was Sin Cara and
oh yeah.
Yeah. This is how memorable the cruiserweights in the last 5 years have been. So their names just slipped my mind. But like I said, next week is our salute to indie creators. So we're gonna have authors and comic book writers and comic book artists joining us. So this will be fun for you, Willow.
I cannot wait.
The other member of the Lucha Dragons was Sin Cara and Kalisto.
Yes, Kalisto. That was the name I was trying to think of. And Kalisto's pretty good.
Kalisto. I mean, I do, but I don't.
He was, one of the other masked guys.
What color was his mask usually?
He had it was like different ones. He had trying to think of the green, like a green.
Oh, was it like a green and red and?
Yeah,
okay.
He had different color ones. But he'd always be like.
Oh, okay. I was like, I remember the name, but I can't remember.
Yeah, fun fact is the Sin Cara that was in WWE wasn't the original Sin Cara, because the original Sin Cara that came, there was an issue, and so he was released, but WWE had created the name Sin Cara, so they put somebody under the mask that which was a wrestler known. He was Hunico was his name, who became Sin Cara. Hunico was and we're gonna go stereotypical. He was the one that had the wife beater and came out with the lowrider bicycle, and yeah.
See, I see a trend. I see a trend in very much being racist.
Well,
I'm sorry.
They in professional wrestling, I mean, they took real life stereotypes and brought them in.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Well, and the other one that they do is with the Japanese wrestlers that come in, and they do treat them quite a bit differently too. Like our Japanese wrestlers, I know Funaki speaks English, but they make him sound like the guy from 16 Candles.
Oh no!
All the time. And now, granted, Funaki doesn't speak the best English, and neither does Shinsuke Nakamura either. They don't speak the best English, but they can speak English.
Yeah.
But they don't treat the women like that. That's the other thing. Like Io Shirai and Io Shirai, and then
there's Asuka, Kairi Sane,
They don't get treated like that though. They don't speak English as much, but they don't get treated like the typical. You know what I mean? Like the typical
why? Maybe it's because they are trying very hard to get away from that image, and they're fighting against it.
Maybe, and then Funaki is the Japanese
commentator now.
Yeah,
because with WWE they have was 6 or 7 language.
They have different languages. They have a Portuguese, Japanese,
German,
Spanish, and Italian. I think they have an Italian.
Hindi.
And then they do have a Hindi. Yeah. But that's because they finally did make it very big in India when they
Vince did it was a lucrative deal with Saudi Arabia.
They signed
and India they did
they also signed somebody, didn't they? They made Jinder Mahal
even though he's Canadian. Go figure.
Well, his heritage is Indian. He is Hindi.
Yeah.
So, we got to stop just assuming that because he lives in Canada, he's not anything else. It's not really fair.
I'm more than willing to play up my German side.
Well, and I think Canada's a lot like us. There's a lot of melting pot cities that are very much, if people don't come to the US, they come to certain cities in Canada, and that's where they make their lives because.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Willow, because I know you are friends with some Canadian indie wrestlers.
I've been trying very hard to get them on the show, and they're always busy.
Yeah, life on the road as a professional wrestler,
I guess,
and
but-
life on the road as a
but that's
professional
good.
wrestler in 2020 is different.
But assume life on the road in the indie circuit, there are so many places you have to go in such a fast turnaround time.
Yeah.
So you want to name drop some of these people?
Yes.
So people can go and look them up?
So I have one of the guys that I'm friends with actually runs ECW. And his name is Danny Dugan. And another wrestler friend of mine is Adam Knight. And these guys are just fantastic. And what's funny is, like, I met both of them outside of the ring and chatting with them, and they're such nice people. Went to go see a show, and Adam Knight is a heel. I'm just like, no.
What kind of heel does he play?
He kind of plays along the lines of, like, kind of an Undertaker kind of guy, very cowboy-ish, and I think you guys would enjoy chatting with these guys if I can finally get them on. Adam Knight is actually a writer as well. He has written a couple books, and unfortunately I don't have them on me right now. But I will definitely I'll share his stuff
Cool.
with you guys. But he has written the Book of Corum and The Heart of Stone, and I'm pretty sure there's other books that he's written as well, because I have one of them that he signed for me. And these guys are just fantastic, super nice people, great wrestlers, and so I'll share their pages with you guys in the chat, and as well as on my page, and just
and on the Reels and Heels page, we'll put up links.
Yeah,
I think we need to do more of that when we have people on, to market them a little bit more, to add their page to it, because I think we're kind of lacking there. I feel like we need to have a little bit more streamlined, marketing for our page.
Yeah.
But I think that it's always fun to have new people on, because then you have an opportunity to hear about other stuff that's happening. Because I very much enjoy the last indie wrestling thing we went to here in Florida.
That was fun.
And so it was funny. Like we met Effie, and
let's just say Effie is somebody that's on the cusp in the indie world.
He could really be,
like, he could be the next big.
He should get signed.
Yeah.
I mean, he really should. So we were talking to him, and so he came out, because I didn't know who he was before. I think I'd heard like little rumblings and stuff, but I never saw who he was. And so if you know who Scott Straka is, he is one of our artist friends. And so like Scott Straka's page, you can see like his facial features. So I turned to Brian and I said, "So is Scott Straka an indie wrestler?" And Brian went, "No." He's like, and then he's like, look at the guy. He's like, "That's Effie." And I'm like, "Effie, are they the same person?" So after the show, we walked over to Effie's table, and I said, "You have a twin, like you have a doppelganger." And Brian brought up the picture of Scott Straka, and he's like, "Holy shit!" Like he even saw it. So he's like, "It's like looking in the mirror." But I was like, it was so crazy. And I think the nicest thing about it is that he didn't play in. He plays into the stereotypes a little bit on in the ring, but when you see him outside of the ring, he's just an average, general guy. But he is one of the first out and proud gay wrestlers that are living like the true life. And so he is, fishnet stockings and pink studded jackets and stuff like that. But that is a lot of the gimmick, but he is very true to the fact that he wants to promote the fact that you know, we're not all the same. Like, he's not the typical, you know, weak individual that people want to call, you know, generally anybody who's LGBTQ. I think we get a bad rap.
And his in-ring skills are top notch. He's really good.
And he is good on the mic, and he can play a crowd, and he's just fun to watch. And I think he should be better received now than Lenny Lane was in the 90s.
Right.
I need to correct myself. I apologize. I said ECW by accident. I meant CWE, which is the Canadian Wrestling Elite.
Okay.
Denny Dugan.
I was wondering about that one.
I'm so sorry, guys.
I'm thinking,
trying to figure out when we got a cat.
I was playing on the phone. Hey, Brett, since you have the share screen up, can you type in Effie? It's EFFY.
Yeah. There's I don't know if you see it, there's a picture of Kalisto to remind Nicole.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I remember.
Yeah,
now.
that's Kalisto, and then Sin Cara.
Yeah. Effie. So this is Effie.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Yeah, he's super popular in the state of Florida, but he's known all over the country.
The indie circuit.
Yeah. And that's actually, if you pull up this picture with him and Joey Ryan.
That's their famous, that's a famous feud. Like they're.
Yeah.
They're in the ring?
Yeah, that one right there. Yeah, and Willow's probably going, what's going on there? All right.
You know what?
So,
it's wrestling. I've been to a couple local shows myself.
Okay, but this is Joey Ryan. I need to explain. Joey Ryan has the penis flip. It's like his penis has like superpowers. So basically, when someone grabs there, he flexes and it makes the opponent get weak. And he goes like this, and he can flip the opponent.
That is funny.
Yes, and now after the show, she's gonna YouTube.
No.
Joey Ryan penis flip.
I believe I've seen videos of this and passed them on to my wrestling friends and said, "Hey, you guys need to amp up your gimmicks."
I think it's just funny, you know, because I think some of the indie guys, because even with Velveteen Dream, there's something very ambiguous about him. Like I don't know if it's the purple and the Prince theme and all that, because I know Prince had lots of women, but there was still a lot about him that seemed very much that questionable, like living in both worlds kind of thing. So you weren't ever really sure. Yeah. And I don't think he ever truly said anything. Like, you know, I think probably like a lot of us who don't say things.
Yeah.
I never did, because I didn't think I had to, because I thought the whole world knew, but okay. Clearly the whole world did not. But well,
last time I checked, there's still parts of Europe that do not know.
Okay. I'll make it a point to make sure they know too. Although I did have a kid question my pride button on my lanyard. I'm like, well, can I have that back? And I said, can I have my keys back? Because she had my keys. She's opened the laptop cart for me, and not the laptop cart, but the iPad cart. And she opened the things and she says, "Can I have this pen?" And I'm like, "No, you can't have my pen." And she goes, "Well, why do you have it? Like, you have a husband and you have and you have kids." And I'm like, "Because I'm an ally, leave me alone." And she says, "Well, I'm gay. I should get to have your pen." And I'm like, first of all, you're 13. Second of all, no, you can't have my pen. And third of all, like, why do they want to tell me stuff? I'm like, I keep telling my 13-year-olds, I'm like, y'all, you got to live in a world where Miss Jobin doesn't know these things. Like Miss Jobin thinks that you are all perfect, wonderful kids and you don't lie and you don't cheat and you don't steal and you don't know anything about sex. And they laugh at me. I'm like, no, I need to live in this world. That world makes me happy.
Oh my gosh.
So I kind of dodged that bullet a little bit because I don't think my kids need to know. But
we should end this show on the Cruiserweights. So
we really should.
So
I don't know why we all
agreed,
decided to talk about other things.
But we agreed that Eddie Guerrero was our favorite Cruiserweight.
I think Eddie Guerrero is the GOAT.
And Willow is gonna say Jericho.
You know what? As much as I loved Chris Jericho and I know he represents Winnipeg, he's not really my favorite. I'm sorry, guys. You know what? I love Eddie Guerrero. I'm a huge fan of Helms. I will always be a huge Hurricane fan.
Yeah.
That's where my heart belongs.
With Shane Helms.
Yes.
He's adorable.
I've always had a huge crush on him.
So, Brett, I don't know if did you say Guerrero as well?
No, I've got to go with my buddy Prince IK and Mike Hayner.
Yeah, okay.
I got to go with him.
I think he kind of got the short end of the stick, too. Like,
he did.
He really didn't. As far as gimmicks, it kind of moderate success. Well, in his personal endeavors too, didn't have a very good effect on his career either.
Yeah, but that's for another day.
Why do we always end up talking about this on the show? It's like, well,
But like I said, next week, episode 29 is our indie salute to creators of all kinds.
Creators.
So it's time to ring the bell. We need to get a wrestling bell.
Absolutely.
But I do like that. Who brought that up to us?
Oh, I don't remember now.
Who was
it?
Somebody. Yeah, that's what they said. They said
it was on our show.
They said,
was it Ryan?
I think it was Ryan. I think maybe it was Ryan, our buddy over there at Nerd Culture.
Okay, so whoever can remember who gave us the credit for that or who gave us that line, we want to give them credit. Because I don't remember who it was. Because we both looked at each other and we were like, that was great. That's perfect. But yeah.
Yeah, so that's our ending. We're going to ring the bell. Until next week, you guys stay safe.